But I went by and our campground was closed, and I just wondered, is it closed because of the well issue or the water issue, or is it, what's the circumstance?
Thank you, Director Osborne. I believe you're referring to the district Silver Lake West campground on the way
Right,
home
yes,
from your
yes.
fishing not catching experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're actually still working to recover from storm damage from last winter. It's not because of the current water, the well situation. We're working to open up portions of the site as quickly as possible. There are multiple hazard trees, unfortunately, because of the depth of the snow.
Okay.
And we just actually spoke with Carl about that Friday. So we're going to try to open up a portion of the campground in the near future, and hopefully we'll have the full area open by Labor Day weekend, but we're just going to have to see how pace goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Any other comments from directors? LAFCO did not meet in July. Actually, we canceled the meeting, so we'll be back at it in August. A lot of activity in the Cameron Park CSD area. I did get a message yesterday as well that they were going to let the medic unit go. So, yeah, anyway, more to come there. Anything else? All right, seeing none, we will go to now the consent calendar. We need a motion and a second, and then we'll get to our comment.
I'll move to approve.
All right, motion and a second by Director Day. Now, do we have any comments from anybody in the room on the consent? Seeing none, Jen, will you key up the lady online?
I'm going to call for public comment. She's already raised her hand, and then we'll let her speak. If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. This is for any public comment on the consent calendar. Okay, ma'am, if you don't mind terribly stating your name for the record.
Okay, it's Harleen Issa. Would you like me to spell that?
No, thank you.
Okay, so on the consent calendar is an item to dispose of a parcel that used to be in Improvement District 34M, and I have some concerns because the quitclaim deed that was filed in November of 2022 does not have the same description on the parcel as was on the original transfer to Four Corners Landowners Association. And in addition to that, there was a lot line adjustment in 2001, and it's unclear to me which parcel that lot line adjustment attached to. There are two parcels that make up the Hidden Lake area, and I think that the General Counsel's office needs to correct these and make sure that everything is correct before any further action is taken, because there were problems back in the 90s which resulted in a lot of crazy activity. And so I would suggest that the board not approve that particular item and send it back to General Counsel for correction.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have General Counsel address it, and he's going to discuss it right now. Brian?
President Vierkamp, just one point of clarification, and thank you to Ms. Issa for pointing out if there are some things that we need to take a look at in terms of the property description in the quitclaim deed. I'll be sure to take a look at that, as well as the lot line adjustment. So happy to do some further work. But just one point of clarification, this is not an action to dispose of this parcel, as Ms. Issa indicated. This is instead merely a declaration that this property is surplus to the district's needs. In reality, this property has been surplus to the district's needs since the day we obtained ownership. But so having said that, all this action does is to formalize that this property is surplus and therefore could be disposed of at a later point, subject to board action at that point in time.
Okay, very good. And the parcel number is correct, and that, so we're not
And just to clarify your
correct.
concerns, you will review and investigate that.
Yep, and if there's any issues associated with that, we'll bring that back. As I said, no action will occur on this property unless and until, the board takes further
This
action,
is
so,
just to make it surplus.
that's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for the comment, Ms. Issa. Director Dwyer?
It seems to me that, this is not urgent, that perhaps we should pull this item from the consent calendar until we get an accurate description. And question, have we done a survey because of the lot line concern that was expressed?
We've not done a survey of the properties to my knowledge, but if the board would feel more comfortable pushing this out and declaring it surplus at a future meeting, I don't have any objection to that. I'm just trying to, as directed, keep the ball moving on this. And so this is one step of many that has to happen
Yeah,
before anything
I'll
can happen.
move then that we pull this item and then consider it a future.
I'll second.
meeting. Since there is no
No
urgent.
urgency about it.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second on the
Just to
consent. Now we're going to pull it.
Just to make a note for Jennifer, we're withdrawing our original motion. Yeah, and now it's a new motion.
Right. So do we still have a motion to approve, though, the consent absent this item?
Correct.
Okay. And Director Day, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any further comments, Jen, online?
No, it appears we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, very good. We are on to information items.
Well,
I
actually, we need to continue item 2, right, Jen? No?
It's part
It's
of
no action.
Okay. All
So
right.
direction was given. Yep. Good morning, Ms. Downey. Doesn't sound like it.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
we're good now.
Yeah, you'll have to probably become one with the mic.
With the microphone. I'll bring it down to my level, it's okay. Good morning, President Bierkamp, members of the board. I'm Jenny Downey, Customer Service Manager here with the district. I'm here today to present to you the results of the Customer Satisfaction Survey for 2023. Next slide. So our surveys are conducted every 2 years. As in the past, we emailed over, it's the 4,000 randomly selected customers. It is an equal amount of water and wastewater and recycled water customers. They are the same 8 questions that we have asked in previous surveys. We did have a 17% response rate. It is down a little bit from the past few years. It was 19% for the last 2 surveys till this one. So it's still a pretty good response rate. We did see an increase in satisfaction for reasonableness of water and reasonableness of wastewater rates, and we'll go over that a little bit more later. So our first question, based on your experience, how satisfied are you with the service provided? We had 91% again say they were very satisfied or satisfied with their service. Next question. If you've telephoned the district, are calls answered promptly and professionally? We had a 98% very satisfied, or had no reason to call. So we did see a 1% increase in satisfaction year over year. For our third question, compared to other utilities field responses, is the district's response level excellent, very good, average, poor, or had no reason to request service? This year, we had a 98% response rate saying it was excellent, very good, average, or did not need a response, so 2% increase here. Now can you go back? In 2021, Director Day did ask us to look at removing average from what we consider acceptable levels of service. In doing so, it would reduce it down to 80% on our overall satisfaction there. However, we do believe that average is an acceptable response. It's not great. It's not bad, but you know, it's satisfied. They didn't leave unsatisfied is how we looked at it.
Well, it's useful information, and I think even 80% is still good. And but I think it's good to break it out a little bit. Thank you.
So our question 4, compared to other utility companies, the district's water rates are very reasonable, reasonable, or unreasonable. And this is where we saw a great increase here. We got 70% felt it was very reasonable or reasonable. That's a 9% increase since last time.
Yeah, I was interested because for the past decade, it's been pretty consistent, 50-50 on this level, fluctuating a little bit. So this statistically is a pretty significant change.
Yes.
So I'm curious, the one is that people are just more okay with it than before. Another would be that, compared to everything else, maybe it doesn't seem so bad. Or also, statistically, do we know where the respondents were? Because in our geography, that does make a difference on their thoughts and opinions on the rates.
It is a survey that we don't know who's responding or where they're from. So unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to say, were they in El Dorado Hills versus up in Pollock Pines.
Right,
Yeah.
which is a possibility. Okay, thank you.
Oh. Oops, wrong way. There we go. So for question 5, compared to other utility companies, the district's sewer rates are very reasonable, reasonable, or unreasonable. Again, we saw a great increase, 61% say very reasonable or reasonable. That's a 10% increase. So in the same lines as the water, we saw a significant increase.
Now, these are people who, do we know, only that they have sewer service?
They're supposed to answer the question only if they have sewer service
But we
with
don't
us.
know for sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's all I can. Exactly.
And my septic system.
Because that would be one.
That's great.
Yeah, that would be one way of validating if we knew for sure that they did or didn't, but I know it's anonymous.
Yes,
So, right,
exactly.
okay.
If you come fix my septic tank, I'd probably approve it.
We'll get that right away. So for question 6, we asked them to rank their belief about the importance of these 8 different levels of service here. Basically stayed the same. The only thing that jumped was watershed protection. It jumped from 6 up to 4. So there really wasn't any change here.
President Veerkamp, I think it was interesting to note 2 things on this slide as staff. The timing of watershed protection relation, obviously, unfortunately, to the Caldor fire and showing our customers awareness. And then the other item that was of interest is the synergy between the board's priorities and their cost of service analysis and what our customers are telling our staff directly. So just 2 observations for you. So.
Yeah, important.
So then question 7, to please indicate your preferred method to receive information. Again, this was almost exactly the same. The only difference is from 2021 to 2023, we actually broke out social media from other. Before, that's where it had resided there. So. And question 8, provide any additional comments, clarifications to any of the questions that they had. We basically went in and wanted to see, based upon either random comments or questions, if they fell into some categories. So obviously rates were number 1, reliability, more about our leaks, our service, our water quality, and then communication, how the board and how the district is communicating with its customers there. So this is just a chart that will show where our target is for our KPIs and where we've been with the last 3 surveys. As Director Day called out, we saw the reasonableness of rates was very stagnant for a while, stayed there, and then this year is where we saw that jump.
KPIs are our key performance indicators, our district's performance measures.
Thank you, Jen. So just to add a little bit to it, our email and online statistics, we have 86% of our customers providing an email address as a form of communication. We have 74% of our customers registered for an online account, and of those, 31% have a reoccurring credit card payment set up, and 50% are paperless.
Jenny, is that 31%? That's been pretty stable, you know, up and down a little bit, but that's pretty much the reoccurring credit card payment, pretty much flat for quite a few years now, isn't it?
Yeah, and these are moving targets because as people move in and move out of the areas, we lose someone that's signed up and we may gain someone. So it all depends on what, you know, what service that customer provides. But you're right, this has stayed pretty consistent.
Yeah.
We see it increase a little bit and then we see it drop back down.
Director Day?
Yeah, so, oops, sorry. You can go back to that.
Go back to
The, yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, so, so the 31%, it is interesting. I had the same thought, George. It's pretty stagnant. You would think it would be growing with convenience of it. But also maybe to help manage their budgets. They don't want that surprise bill sometimes that hits them in the summertime. So the other 43%, they're registered to pay, so they go online to pay, but not on the automatic recurring. Is that?
Sometimes. So some people just want their bill to be available online and they still mail a check in or they still come in here in the office. It's hit and miss. Some people use their bank's online bill pay to pay because that's how they have their system set up. So it's just so that they can log in and see their historical bills.
Okay, thank you.
Director Dwyer?
Yes, Jen. Seems like the last time we did this survey, you supplied us with the actual comments that the public had taken the time to actually write something down, which you summarized in the previous chart. But it's kind of nice sometimes to see, well, sometimes not very nice, but it's good for the board to get that direct feedback to see exactly what customers are taking the extra time and effort to type something out that we probably need to be aware of. Understanding there'll be people that have issues and gripes, as we all do.
Yep.
But I think it'd be good to provide that to the board. Thanks.
I'll get that to Jennifer and we can get that over to you guys.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Director Roswell?
Just a general comment. A lot of people that have sewer service have said, I wish I was in EID service area instead of Placerville City, because they have a huge difference. And there's a reason for that went back to 2005. And we tried to mitigate that, and we're not successful.
Good comment. Okay. Public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item?
This is the time for public comment on information item number 6. If you'd like to address the board, please refer to the instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Verkamp, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak.
All right, before we vote, Director Dwyer wants one more comment.
Yeah, I'll take Jen, don't leave yet, because I think these results reflect very positively on you and your crew and the customer service and the way that you handle customer calls professionally and resolve issues as quickly as possible. So congratulations to you and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Echo
I'll pass
that as
that
well.
along.
Yes, very good, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're ready for the vote. No, we're
This
not.
is
It's
an
information.
Yes.
Okay, action item. Now we can get down to the meat and potatoes. Finance.
This is the warrant registers.
What's that?
Warrant registers.
Yes,
Move option 1.
yes, I'm not
Second.
recusing myself. There's nothing there. Okay, we have a motion for option 1. Do we have a second? Second? All right. Any public comment? Seeing none, anybody online?
If members of the public would like to speak on action item number 7, option 1, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Osborne. Now is the time. President Verkamp, it does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, thanks, Jen. Please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 8, engineering. Tracy, good morning.
Morning, Tracy.
Okay, this agenda item is for a construction contract to rehabilitate filters 5 and 6 at the El Dorado Hills wastewater treatment plant. The project was approved as part of the 2023-27 CIP by the board, and in February, the board awarded a contract to West Tech to provide filter and clarifier equipment, so that we could get that equipment here in time for this winter, having it installed before this winter. You may recall we had like a 7-month lead time on that equipment. So 2 of the 6 tertiary filters at the El Dorado Hills wastewater treatment plant have failed, and they have been taken out of service. As a result, the plant's ability to meet discharge standards during peak wet weather events is considerably diminished. Installation of new filter equipment and complete rehabilitation of the filters will address these issues.
Tracy, would you mind a little closer for the board? I'm having difficulty.
Sorry about that. So the plant, we operate 6 filters at the plant, and these filters are the last step in the treatment process prior to discharge to the recycled water system or to Carson Creek. And they are essential to us meeting Title 22 requirements for recycled water. So in in the 1990s, we installed filters 1 through 4 with an older underdrain system design, a half-pipe underdrain. In 2007, filters 5 and 6 were installed, and they were multi-block underdrains, and as you recall, that was a newer design. Unfortunately, filters 5 and 6 underdrain systems have failed, both of them in the last 18 months, which is leaving us, with 1/3 of our capacity out of service, with no redundancy for no redundancy if other filters fail. This is an overview. Jen's coming up with the picture. This is an overview of the treatment plant, and the tertiary filters are shown there in red. And I have a few more pictures just to jog your memory from our February agenda item. This is a picture looking out over one of the filters, and the next picture is an end view of filters 5 and 6. These are the filters that actually failed. This picture, you've seen this one before. In the bottom center of that picture, there's a black square. It's where one of the plates has blown off, and that's what we're going to be fixing. So these are plastic blocks. The underdrain is made up of plastic blocks, and the plates are attached with stainless steel screws, and they have stripped out of the plastic. So when one of these plates fails, this is what happens. We're looking down into the filter at the media. The filters are rated, the capacity is rated based on a gallons per minute per square foot. So you can only have so many gallons per minute going through every square foot of that filter bed. And when you have a filter or a plate failure, you get a concentrated flow, and that's why you see that concentrated flow there, that little hole in the media. Okay. Some of the other work that will be done with the equipment installation is recoating the tank and all the structural members. As you can see, there is quite a bit of corrosion inside the tanks. And this is why you see a little bit higher construction contingency as part of this agenda item, because we may have to replace some of those. After they're sandblasted, there'll be an inspection to see if they can be reused. Okay, moving on to the construction contract. We advertised for bids in June of '23, just a few months ago, and 2 bids were received in July, and both of the bids we received were below the engineer's estimate of $1 million. TNT Industrial Contractors, excuse me, is the lowest bidder, so we are recommending them for award. And they have done good work for the district in the past. They just finished up a project at the plant recently successfully. So we are confident that they'll do a good job on this project. This project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under an exemption for replacement and reconstruction of existing structures and facilities. As such, if the project is approved, staff will file a notice with the county. Funding for this project was identified in the 23-27 CIP with $2.22 million identified expenditures over the 5-year period. This table provides a summary of the funding being requested to complete the project, and it includes the construction award, engineering during construction, construction management, inspection services, specialty coating inspections, capitalized labor, and a 15% construction contingency for a total funding request of $1,053,807. And again, you're seeing a little bit higher construction contingency because of the corrosion that may or may not.
That was a question I was going to ask you, because we've been running around 10% for contingencies. Why would, so you answered it. Thank you.
Yep.
Read my mind.
All right. Okay. After board award of the construction contract, we expect that a contract will be executed in August, construction beginning in September, and filter and clarifier equipment delivered in October, with construction completion by the end of the year. So board options. Option 1 is to
Did you
award.
read the whole thing?
Do you want me to read the whole thing?
I don't, but
I don't either. Yeah,
I'm going to read the.
we can read.
I'm going to read the whole thing. So award a contract to TNT Industrial Contractors in the not-to-exceed amount of $819,200 for construction of the El Dorado Hills Wastewater Treatment Plant Filter 5 and 6 Rehabilitation Project, and authorize additional funding in the amount of $24,022 for engineering services during construction, $24,910 for construction management, $24,700 for inspection services, $16,095 for specialty coating inspection, $22,000 for capitalized labor, and $122,880 in project contingency for a total funding request of $1,053,807 for the El Dorado Hills Wastewater Treatment Plant Filter 5 and 6 Rehabilitation Project number 22039.01, which staff has determined is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
I'll move option 1.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second.
I have a comment.
Okay, comment, please.
Just a couple things that, one, Tracy, appreciate you, spilling this out for us again. But I think the public needs to realize that this particular project, even though it was on the CIP plan, was advanced fast because of the storm damage we had this last winter. And just so the public knows, we need to keep our infrastructure safe and sound, including avoiding any kind of penalties we get from the federal government. So I just want to make sure that that's put out there.
All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Dwyer.
And just a comment, the good news is, if there is any good news in this, is it's not a surprise. I think Tracy and the wastewater operations group have done a good job of keeping the board and the public informed, along with the engineering department. So this isn't a surprise to us. We understand what the needs are and what the urgency is, so thank you.
Thank you.
Director Osborne.
Little tongue-in-cheek. We've always been happy with TNT contractors from the board standpoint, but I always thought tongue-in-cheek, the first thing they do is blow it up, and then they go in and fix it.
And that's what they'll do at this project.
All right. Any further comment from the board? No? Seeing none, any public comment? Very good. Anybody online, Jen?
This is the time for public comment on action item number 8, option 1, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Anzini. President Veerkamp does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we are on to item 9, information technology. Mr. Ransome, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, President Bierkamp. Morning, members of the board. So, Tim Ranstrom, IT Director here. Before you for an enterprise server replacement request. Previous board actions, there were several, over which time the district purchased the servers in question that are needing to be replaced back in 2016, 2017. These were purchased for use in the data center and for out at the plants to support SCADA infrastructure. So the crux of the issue is that we use virtualization software to allow these servers to do much more with the hardware investment. That software needs to be upgraded, and a good portion of the existing base of servers is not capable of running that upgraded software, and so has to be replaced. So we run at the district hundreds of software applications that the staff use daily, literally many of them around the clock, to keep the district going. And we have clusters of servers to support those applications, and then the virtualization allows us to get a much higher density of applications per server versus a one-for-one. So instead of hundreds of physical servers, we have relatively few number of servers supporting the hundreds of applications, which helps reduce costs, make it more secure, more maintainable, et cetera. There's a lot of, it's a well-established good practice to virtualize servers. So kind of jumping ahead.
Do you have to wear special masks to do that, the virtual?
That's next.
That'll be the next
operate on the
request.
filter plates.
Yeah, no, but there is special software and interfaces and things to do it, and it's just getting your head into a different mindset that you
And no
can't physically
AI
touch it.
included, right?
Not directly,
Whoa.
but there's more and more intelligence being built into the applications and things that help to secure and operate these systems. So as I mentioned, we need to upgrade the virtualization software, and currently 30 of the servers that the district has don't meet those requirements. They've been operating 6+ years and just cannot be upgraded or enhanced to meet the minimum requirements of the virtualization software. So we are planning to piggyback a existing procurement, Sourcewell, which the state of Minnesota administers. The purchase does include 5 years of hardware support up front with on-site next business day repairs. And this locks in the price over the term, ensures we get the support, a level of support we need, because there's some, these servers are configured for high availability in clusters. If one fails, another will kick in and cover it, and that allows us to get next day response. You know, it doesn't create a crisis. We're not down or adversely affected as long as we can get the servers back up and get back to our +1 type of redundancy. Next. So as far as the project goes, the purchase of the 30 servers would be from CDWG under the aforementioned piggyback procurement, $313,000. Capitalized labor for internal staff to do the implementations, testing, integration work, $33,000, 5% contingency, for a total funding request $363,066. This is in the current CIP. Staff had estimated $400,000 for this particular project, and the funding source for it would be from rates, 60% water, 40% wastewater. So before you, the options. Option 1, award a contract to CDWG in the not-to-exceed amount of $313,066 for the purchase of server equipment and authorize additional funding of $33,000 for capitalized labor and $17,000 in contingency for a total funding request of $363,066 for the enterprise server replacement project, project number 23024.01.
I'll move option one with a comment.
Motion with a comment.
I'll second it.
And a second.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Director Zini.
The comment is, I really think the redundancy that you pointed out, that you can take one server down and the others pick up the load for the lack of a better technical explanation, is really key, and we should and are exploring that with the rest of our operations, is how do we build redundancy not only into our data systems, but also into our infrastructure so that we can take a treatment plant down and have another one pick up the load. That's why some of these projects are so extremely important. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, it's essential. It's one of the strategies we've had for quite some time, is really just asking how long can it be down before a crisis, and then architecting appropriately to mitigate that.
Director Anzini.
Yeah, and we all know, coming from an IPT background myself, that, virtual private networks were the thing 20 years ago. Now they're less than, but it's a different version of redundancy, because you always have to have a backup plan. And that's something I learned in Computer Science 101, you just, leave it there. The important thing is that you're ahead of the game and it's worth the investment, especially when it comes to utilities. And people don't realize how it's important on the emergency basis to access what filter plant is having a problem versus what issues throughout our whole water system. And like Director Day said, someday we're going to be having those what do they call them?
Augmented reality.
Augmented reality. Well, surgeons are now cutting into people using those, so it's really crazy, but it's just a matter of years, not decades. So appreciate that we're keeping up to par. This has also helped security breach, so it helps keep hackers out by updating the software all the time.
Absolutely, yeah. Keep it current for just fixing flaws, defects, and then more and more security functionality comes with these subsequent releases. So yeah, it's very important that we stay current.
Good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from anybody in the room? Anybody online, Jen?
This is the time for any public comment on action item number 9. President Veerkamp does not appear. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 9, option 1, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Anzini? I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you as well for your support and understanding.
All right, have a great day. We are on to item 10, engineering. Mr. Money.
Always costs money.
It always costs money, Mr. Money.
That's the hard thing about engineering.
That's it.
Good morning, John Money, Engineering Manager for the district, here to discuss this morning an award of a construction contract and project funding request for the Echo Conduit Emergency Replacement Project. Previous board action item, so in a related way, the board did adopt a resolution of emergency regarding the storms for this past winter. Related to that, again, the governor also declared a state of emergency for El Dorado County in that same time period. And this is tailing on that. The reason it's so delayed is because of those storms. We had a huge delay in our access to those facilities this year. So just a summary of why we're here today. Again, the December 22 to March 23 storms were unique in that they went on a long time, and they also accumulated very dense water-laden snow over the summit. So we up to 12 feet of snow on Echo Summit. which caused portions of our echo conduit to collapse and become destabilized under those snow loads. The echo conduit has a couple different portions. Again, one of the portions collapsed, one is elevated on trestles. Both of those are right above Highway 50, so it poses a safety risk for the district and the public. And so the staff feels really that there's an imminent need for replacement, both because of that risk, ongoing risk, but also that if we don't repair that extends into next year. It can continue to deteriorate over this next winter. And then also we cannot use that facility until those repairs are complete.
Actually, the issue goes back way farther than December of '22. We've been talking about this conduit for as long as I can remember. What do we do? Replace it, the old riveted portion, the dented, the problems. And it's been in our CIP discussions. We were going to do it in-house, then we'll maybe get a contractor. And I think the storms in December just forced a hand and forced our issue.
Correct.
Actually, I think it's all related to the storm. Remember, it's a FEMA application, so. Yes.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I could tell you, I live at 3,000 feet and had $19,000 worth of snow damage at my house, and I can imagine what it is at 8,000 feet.
Yeah. Again, it's just an unprecedented year on many fronts. So some additional background on the actual echo conduit. You started to allude to some of this, but the facility was originally constructed in the late 1800s. The actual pipeline portion of this, which I'm assuming replaced an original earthen or otherwise ditch, was constructed in the 1920s. So basically, we're approaching 100 years on that current facility, or on the current pipe. The pipe transitions from the facility that we're talking about today to an earthen channel, and then to another 1,000 feet slip-lined HDPE pipe. So. As you alluded to in our previous conversations, you know, a project that is still probably coming to the board as we prioritize it is the replacement of that earthen channel eventually to help again facilitate or to buoy up the resiliency of this facility. Again, the reason this is important is the water rights for Echo Lake are up to 1,943 acre feet of water for consumptive and hydroelectric generation. As far as location goes, the total facility is kind of the blue to blue on this map. The damaged portion is shown in red, and that earthen canal that I referred to earlier is in that yellow portion. Highway 50, again, does extend north-south on the backside or downhill side of this facility. We'll see that in a future picture where, you know, kind of the proximity of where we are opposed to or in relationship to Highway 50. So following up on some background, again, we were very delayed. Usually staff gets in there, I believe, you know, as early as April, beginning of April, to start, you know, seeing where we are for the year. This year, staff was not able to get in there due to road closures until mid-June. And at that point, they found the damaged facility. So up to about 400 feet of really of conduit that's when they discovered that it had been collapsed or deformed. We also noted several radial cracks where the pipeline had actually sheared off a little bit. And then again, the 200 feet of that elevated section appears to have shifted a little and become destabilized as it shifted downhill a little bit. Next slide. So it's a couple of photos of the damage that was observed. Again, this is supposed to be a round pipe. It's pretty flattened on the top right now. You can see it's supported on that cribbing, and that's to help to kind of deform the pipe at this location. So next slide. This is a photo of one of those areas again where those loads and that extra stress on the pipe has caused it to shear and crack open. The next two are the elevated section. So at this portion right here, we transition from a ground-supported conduit to a conduit that's supported on a series of wooden trestles. And these trestles are as the picture shown, I know it's a little shady there, but they're shifted slightly to the left or downhill side of the hillside there. If you look down there on the bottom corner, you'll see the proximity again of Highway 50, which snakes along right below this facility.
And John, if you just to context, I believe that's 1 or 2 vehicles, so it's a pretty significant drop for members of the public to be able to see how perched our facility is up on that that ditch. Thank you.
So again, here's just another photo we had of the trestles there that are supporting the wooden supports for the existing structure. So again, rather than going through the traditional bid process, we are recommending an emergency replacement. Staff evaluated the damage to the facility with Siblon Reed on a tour on June 30th, which was about 15 days after staff first got into the site. Siblon has provided a preliminary cost estimate to replace those damaged sections. And in conjunction with that, we used one of our on-call engineering consultants, Waterworks, to evaluate the facility, and if we move forward, they'll be doing a kind of on-the-fly design through one of our on-call contracts. The scope of the work, again, is to replace 400 feet of that collapsed conduit, approximately 200 feet of the elevated conduit with their supporting structures, which is that wooden trestles. And again, those will all be replaced with steel to help harden that structure moving forward. And as well, any of the on-ground or on-grade conduit is currently supported with that wooden crimming there that I pointed out. That'll all be replaced with concrete. Siblon did provide an order of cost or an order of magnitude cost estimate of $1,117,000 for this work, with an anticipated duration of approximately 23 working days.
That amazes me that they can accomplish it. In 23 days. It's a major, major project. So, and we've always been very happy with Siblon Reed, but as a contractor, but to anticipate 23 days of work, I've walked that portions of the thing that are walkable, and I can tell you, there's some tough country up there, so.
Yeah, that was again, that was part of the initial site work, and the follow-up with our engineering consultant is how do we stage that. So likely Siblon will actually be working 2 crews there, one on that base section and then one on the elevated section. So combined, they'll be working simultaneously, which condenses that working schedule. So again, our intent is to single source this work, and that's for several reasons. The primary reason, again, is the safety concerns associated with that perch right there above, or the failing conduit right there above Highway 50. In order to immediately proceed on that, again, there's just no time given our standard bidding procedures and the winter that is actually just a few months out. We just don't have the ability to obtain standard construction bids. Again, if we don't act, we have further risk that the conduit will be further damaged this year, which increases that safety risk to the district. And then again, moving forward with this, it also allows us to reestablish our water use from Echo Lake for this upcoming year, or this ongoing year. So the construction contract, again, as I mentioned, will be with Siblon Reed Contractors. Director Osborne previously pointed out, we have had a long working, successful working history with Sibon Reed. They do have experience in large diameter pipe replacement. And they also have a very good track record for helping the district out in past emergency situations, including the 2017 storm damage and most recently the Caldor fire replacement of some of our flume structures. The proposed contract will be a time and materials contract for $1,117,000. Again, that's a preliminary estimate, but we're pretty confident that we won't exceed that estimate. The schedule moving forward, if approved, is that we will immediately begin procurement of that material, fabrication of any of the mounting hardware in August, and begin construction just after Labor Day. With, again, the project being complete in October, right after our shortened outage this year for hydro. Excuse me. Moving on to environmental review, staff has reviewed the project and believes that that we will be exempt from CEQA. If we move forward, staff will file a notice of exemption with the El Dorado County Clerk's Recorder's Office, and we'll continue to coordinate and receive any permits with any of the governing agencies in that area. So moving on to project funding, again, we are asking for $1,117,000 for construction contract, $75,000 for engineering services with a project contingency of $120,000, making a total funding request of $1,312,000 for this project. And then just as a word of note, we have also filed a claim with our insurance provider, and we'll be seeking some reimbursement from Aqua JPIA as well. We were just up there last week with the initial adjuster.
We have to,
Hang on,
Mike,
hang on.
we
Mike.
have to have you come to the mic if you have a comment. I'm sorry.
Director Dwyer has a question.
Yeah, can you back up one slide, please? Yep. Just curious why we don't have any capitalized labor in this quote.
So we do. So we've opened a project under the GM. He has authority to authorize up to, I believe, 100 grand. So I think initially we have a 50 grand budget for my time or staff time to administer the project.
Is that included in the engineering services estimate?
No, the engineering services is for the design of the facility, again, through our on-call. That'll also incorporate any additional survey work or additional contracts that we put out.
So again, in which one of these line items is the capitalized labor?
So the capitalized labor is not in the package that we are asking authorization today. That was previously approved as our project was opened under the general manager's authority.
Alan, Dr. Day?
Yeah, I think, and past practice has been to, even though the GM may approve starting on something, is to include that and show it in the line item.
Typically, again, this is outside of our normal processes. Typically, we start with seed money that's approved with the GM. So usually when you see the capitalized labor in here, it's for a larger project, and that's funds that are required up and above what we use to start the project. So usually the project, when we open it, because as soon as we open it, we usually start charging to that project. And most often that is before we come to the board and ask for authorization. So that funding is previously included in or authorized by the general manager up to his, again, 100,000. Dan, correct me if I'm mistaken, if I misstated any of that.
No, that's okay, John. This is somewhat of an unorthodox sequence of events, right? So we have had not too far in the past where we've asked the board to ratify a contract, at which time we go ahead and all costs incurred to that date go ahead and ask for CIP funding at that time. More often than not, there's a project that starts its initial evaluations, including the CIP in the fall, and we start our initial work until we get a preliminary design, and then bring a design contract and ask for additional funding. This is neither one of those. So that's why it seems it's a little bit out of the box, but John is correct in that our board policies allow for up to $100,000 for general manager purchasing authority. That initial CIP funding for staff time to get out there, work with our insurance, and start to formulate to where we are now was part of the general manager's initial CIP funding authority for the project, knowing full well we'd be coming to you as soon as possible so that we can start construction immediately after Labor Day.
Director Osborne, and I have one as well.
Well, you probably recollect I brought this issue up a few times I've been very concerned about this. I haven't, like I said, I've walked portions of that in my younger days. But I'm surprised that we haven't had to be confronted with this a long time ago. And so I will move item 1, or option 1.
We have a second. So,
I just think that for transparency, to show the total costs, we probably should have.
maybe even
included
more
that.
important than that, Dan, to be reimbursed total costs.
Right.
Should we line item it?
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Verkamp, and I assure you that we initiated a tracking work order as soon as we were aware on June 19th when our first observation. So every dollar up to this point is
I
included.
do have a request from the newspaper, if Mr. Rafferty writes an article about this, that it makes mention that this thing is over 100 years old. And it's been on the radar screen for quite a while to get it fixed. And this emergency is just because of the excessive snow load.
Well, we were very concerned about it during the Caldor fire also.
Yeah.
Director Day?
Yeah, and actually, I was going to compliment the workers that built that over 100 years ago. Well,
George is here.
in spirit, because,
Comp in those days.
but it's pretty amazing. And also, I have a request, if it's possible. One of the most interesting things about our district is our history. And, gold mining, ditches, and all sorts of water rights and some of our infrastructure. And this is one of them. And if we can save a small section of this to put out front, I think it would be cool to talk about the history of it. It's pretty interesting. And it is pretty amazing that it lasted as long as it did.
So a collapsed section out front, sounds like to me. Yeah. And is that 100 years in George's 100-year terms, or what? Because that was just a
I was there when they built it.
I was going to say, it's just a wink of an eye. All right, any more questions or comments? We have a motion and we have a second. Jennifer, do we have any public comment in-house?
We need to move forward because Mr. Money here needs to read the
Oh, yes, he
option
does.
for the record, and
Darn
then
it,
we'll
I'm
ask
just
for public
trying to
comment.
get this done.
So again, this morning we are asking for option 1, which is to award a contract to Sybil and Reed contractors in the not-to-exceed amount of $1,117,000 for construction of the Echo Conduit Emergency Repairs Project, and authorize additional funding of $75,000 for engineering services and $120,000 in project contingency for a total funding request of $1,312,000 for the Echo Conduit Emergency Replacement Project, project number 23026.1, which staff has determined is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Okay, now we have it. Michael, did you want to comment from, no? Taking the fifth now, right? All right, anybody online?
President Verkamp, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 10. Option 1 moved by Director Osborne and seconded by Director Day. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sybil and Reed. We're anxious to get this one done as well. All right, we will now go to closed session. Council, do you any report out?
Thanks, President Veerkamp. Yeah, the board will meet now in closed session to discuss the matter that's agendized today as closed session item A. I anticipate that the board's consideration of that item will be short, so not to exceed 10 minutes.
All right, very good. Closed session in about 5 minutes.
Ready.
Okay, we've returned from closed session. Council, do we have anything to report out?
Yes, thank you, President Veerkamp. The board met in closed session to discuss the closed session item A as listed on today's agenda. And the board took one reportable action as follows. On a motion by Director Day, seconded by Director Dwyer, the board unanimously approved a settlement agreement and release between EID, El Dorado Irrigation District, and California River Watch regarding allegations of violations of the Federal Clean Water Act. That settlement agreement and release becomes and is a public document available upon request, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Ran a review of assignments. Like we
Yeah, I just had a request to follow on with Director Dwyer's request for the customer comments on the customer survey. If we could also, when that's provided to the board, if we could also see the statistical breakdown for each question and each answer. So if, how many, what percent rated very good, what percent rated good, so on.
Staff will transmit the comments along with the statistical breakdown to the board.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
10:24.